The Walt Disney Company and Gina Carano are back at it again, but this time it's with an agreement. But folks, if you think it's friendly, think again. Today we'll tell you how the House of Mouse is attempting to block Gina, claiming trade secret after trade secret, and possibly prevent her from having her case heard until after the Mandalorian and Grogu movie. We'll give you the details. It's explosive, and it affects all of Hollywood right now. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another video of excellence right here on the Pro Channel, where we, as ever, endeavor to explain entertainment. Keeping you ahead of the culture curve is what we do, and we do it with a glee and a gusto that the Holly Weirds only can feel. We are joined today by Jonas J. Campbell, investigative reporter for That Park Place, as well as producer extraordinaire of this channel. Jonas, how are you?
I'm doing great. I think about how we're going to continue to strive for excellence forever and ever. And will we stop? No, never.
50 years, 70 years, 100 years, folks, we're ready to go. Folks, all we ask is that you click the like button and let's dive straight in. Over on That Park Place, it's thatparkplace.com. If you're not yet bookmarked, well, you should be. It says Gina Carano and the Walt Disney Company agreed to limited protective status in lawsuit. Read the order. And yes, folks, right here on That Park Place, we have the full-blown order. In fact, if we scroll down, we just posted the whole thing. And you know why, folks? So you can go read it in the full context. And we've got that there for you. Now, I think that it would be a bit burdensome, Jonas, if we read through it right now. And I think people would gloss over, they would glaze over, and they would all pass out from boredom. So that's not what we're going to do. Let me read this intro, and then you and I will discuss what's in the order itself. It says, Gina Carano and the Walt Disney Company have come to an agreement in regards to documents that will be turned over in her lawsuit against Disney, Lucasfilm, and more. The court has ordered a protective order in an effort to safeguard secrets related to The Mandalorian, as well as potential The Mandalorian and Grogu movie. Although it appears Carano is aiming to make as much public as possible, Disney reserves the right to argue in favor of keeping documents secret, despite a good faith clause for making as much readable as possible. Whether or not that will slow down the proceedings has yet to be seen, but there's a strong chance that it might just do so. And so what we're looking at here, Jonas, if we go through this, is, and by the way, here it is. You can see the case number, folks, and we've got the link to it if you want to go see it in its original form, whatever. And I love that it's going after Huckleberry Industries. Jonas, what we've got is a scaffold. We've got a protocol for how Disney is going to contest documents and claim that they are of their own purview for attorneys' eyes only, is one of the ways that it states it. But there's a good faith clause in there that suggests that the default stance is that stuff goes out in the public. I think that Disney is going to try to slow things down, put this in quicksand by probably, and this is speculation, by probably asserting almost everything should be attorney's eyes only. What do you think?
I would say that that's reasonable, but there's a lot in this document about trying to make sure that, there seems to be levels in here, and I'm not an attorney, so I might say something a little off here, but there seems to be levels here where some things are attorney's eyes only, and there are some things that are going to be kept out of even the public purview, and then there's some things that just for the sake of the trial will be, I guess, open to the public here. So I'm thinking that there are some things, like if there's a trade secret or something like that, that will be attorney's eyes only, as if there's any real danger of Gina Carano going off and starting her own studio or something like that. And then there's lesser viewpoints here on those.
So let's read through this good cause statement. And as I said, folks, we're not going to read the entirety of this thing. That would be a 45-minute exercise that only the biggest fans of legalese would enjoy. But this statement is important and lets us know how this is going to play out. And what we're aiming for, Jonas, of course, is, are we the public? Are we the journalists? Are we the analysts going to be able to get a hold of the stuff that is alleged to have happened behind the scenes? So the good cause statement says, this action is likely to involve trade secrets and other valuable commercial, technical, and proprietary information, including, for example, information about the creation of the Mandalorian, for which special attention from public disclosure and from use for any purpose other than seclusion of this action is warranted. So what it goes on to talk about is that there are trade secrets that Disney doesn't want out there. Now, I think in a normal, layman's kind of thought, believe that to mean, well, they don't want the story of the Mandalorian to get out there. They don't want the story of the Mandalorian and Grogu to be, exposed before the movie releases, right? Or maybe there's some sort of, there's some sort of special effects technicality that they don't want other studios to know about. Trade secrets, Jonas, usually are used like if you sue Coca-Cola, and as part of the lawsuit, you want to say that the secret formula that makes the flavor of Coke, causes all kinds of bad things. You can't just do that, and all of a sudden Coca-Cola is like, well, here's our 100-year-old secret recipe. You can't force the Colonel to release the KFC secret blend because you say it made you sick one time. Like, that stays in a very protected status because it's the key to the entire success of the company. I don't know what Disney, other than the story of this movie, could assert here. Do you think that they will attempt to do so, especially, and maybe you want to talk about this, the attorney that is leading this charge, who he is and what he's about?
Well, there's two things that you've brought up here. First of all is
hold on, Jonas. Everybody's got to know the chuckle gives away what we think about the attorney in charge of this. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. He's a very vocal person, and he has his free speech to protect, and everyone else's free speech. I gotta say, he's one of the greatest free speech attorneys out there. That's sarcasm for those who don't who struggle with that. So the first thing is something like the plot of Rangers of the New Republic. Should they ever decide to actually do that show, that might be something that they want to keep secret. Well, so maybe they want to keep the plans for Rangers of the New Republic under wraps because they're saying, "Oh no, this is the show that you wanted to do. It won't be of any value if we tell you tell everyone what it was in court." Well, of course, the real thing is you can know the exact plot of something, and if it's good, people will watch it. The other thing is that the attorney that whose name is on this document, among other attorneys, Gina's attorneys have also signed this as well. Dan Petroselli. He was he not involved in the Disney Plus allergy lawsuit involving Raglan Road?
Yep,
down there?
And in losing the entire, and we assessed this, and Andrew at Legal Mindset has assessed this at about $1 trillion loss for Disney over the next century. He was over there, the loser of the Florida situation.
It is amazing to watch this guy, and he always goes for it being a First Amendment issue. So Reedy Creek, First Amendment issue. Obviously, that was incorrect from the start. The court, they dismissed several portions of that until Disney finally settled. I think that they were anticipating Ron DeSantis was going to be out of office before that actually got into some phase where they'd go into, I don't know, trial.
Yeah, I get the feeling, over having covered Disney now for some years, Jonas, I get the feeling they don't understand politics. They're not good at predicting it.
Well, I think that's maybe all that they understand, actually. I think it's the litigation side that they're failing on, and they want to go out and they want to try to sway in the court of public opinion more than they do on the legal standpoint here. So with the Gina Carano thing, I think that they wanted to put this out there, say the nastiest thing possible, and hope that she settled, which I gotta say, if I can characterize, and this is my opinion, if I can characterize Daniel Petroselli's comments, they're usually pretty nasty.
Yes,
here.
I think he's, and we have stuff that we have talked to people who have dealt with him in the past, and I'm not going to malign anybody. I'm not going to come out and say something that's incendiary and false, but I'm just going to tell you that the opinions of those who have been on the receiving end from him are particularly unpleasant.
Yeah, which is, of course, maybe that's why Disney has chosen to hire him, because he sounds real mean in the room. So I don't know how much of this is actually going to fly. I think they will use, even though there's a lot of language in here about not doing dirty tricks or anything like that, or doing anything in an intention to make to increase costs or things like that. I think that they have a lawyer on their hand who might be inclined to doing some dirty tricks to just make it harder than it has to be.
And is it your assessment, Jonas, because this is the way I see it, and you're free to disagree. The way I see it is Disney seems to be trying every trick in the book to delay, even to the chagrin now of the court, in my estimation. But delay this past the release of the Mandalorian and Grogu movie.
And that would be, I mean, that would really be something. That movie's not supposed to come out until what, the end of 2026? But
no, I think it's May, isn't it? It's May.
perhaps it is. For some reason, Disney ends up putting these things out in December. It's probably so they can have one more 6-month delay on here. Danny Ann was on the Valiant Renegade show, and she's made a little public wager.
Yeah, May 22nd, 2026, Jonas. So they got to get it. They need this thing. Disney needs this thing pushed past June because they don't want this to happen or be underway while it's out in theaters. Because they don't need another Snow White. And how in the world they're not in Snow White territory now with the Mandalorian and Grogu, I don't know.
At least they have everyone quiet about it. No one is going out there and trying to make it into a cultural issue. There's one thing that I'll add here, and it was the point about Danny Ann, who is she's an attorney that has commented on all of this in the past, associated with Mr. Ron Coleman. They work together on some podcasts and things like that. She's thinking that this is not actually going to go to trial in September, which is already a delay as it is.
It was supposed to be in June.
Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is pushed back even farther based off of her expert opinion. So what a pain it must be to deal with this company. And maybe that's why this is so important that that this company be held to task and say, hey, this thing that you're doing, we would like for everyone to understand the kind of people that you're dealing with when you deal with the Disney company.
So Gina has expressed that her motivation is for all of this to be public so that she can go back to doing what she loves to do, which one would presume is working in entertainment. And she believes apparently that so long as it's not public, it makes it very difficult for her to do so. So the motivation, it seems to me, is there that she and her attorneys, backed by Elon Musk, would do everything in their power to make things public. I want to go now to Jonas. Let's go to the original document. Folks, I apologize if you're trying to watch this. I know this is small text, but I'm a little bit stuck here based on the formats that we have. Let me read some of this to you. It says access to and use of protected material. I just want people to understand, once it's designated as protected material, that would be, one would presume, trade secrets, right? How does it get handled? And this is where the devil's in the details, or the mouse, perhaps. It says basic principles. A receiving party may use protected material that is disclosed or produced by another party or by a non-party in connection with this action only for prosecuting, defending, or attempting to settle this action. In other words, you don't get to use it to slime anybody, and you don't get to do it to peer into what's going on behind the scenes and use it for ulterior motives. It says disclosure of confidential information or items. Unless otherwise ordered by the court or permitted in writing by the designated party, a receiving party may disclose any information or item designated confidential only to, and here's what matters, the receiving party's outside counsel, the officers, directors, and employees of the receiving party, experts of the receiving party, the court and its personnel, court reporters and their staff, that's not talking about journalists, professional jury or trial consultants, mock jurors, and professional vendors to whom disclosure is reasonably necessary for this action and who have signed the acknowledgement and agreement to be bound. In other words, they can't talk. The author or recipient of a document containing the information, or a custodian or other person who otherwise possessed or knew the information. It talks about people who are being deposed, and finally, a mediator. Okay, so as I said, Jonas, the devil's in the details. All of this is, I would say, standard fare. I don't think anything here is wild or crazy, and Gina and her attorneys have signed on to this. Where I think the potential lies for Disney to be a real pain is in attempting to get as much stuff labeled the way they want it labeled, and then also to battle within this minutia about who is technically one of these individuals, and are you using this information for anything other than the prosecution of this case? So they can say, well, you don't need Pedro Pascal's salary, and I'm using this as an example. I think they're already compelled by the court. My understanding is to provide that. But that's an example of, they could say, well, you don't need that to prosecute that. And that falls under, trade secrets, because it's damaging to us for people to know the salaries of the people who work for us. Therefore, you're not, and here we go. And it's month after month of that with every single item. Jonas, am I pessimistic?
No, I think that Pedro Pascal's pay and Carl Weathers' pay are all material to this case, because The question was one. I think that pay disparity will probably come up in this lawsuit. If I'm looking at it reasonably, I think that Carl Weathers is probably going to make more money than Gina Carano because he's Carl Weathers. He's often referred to in the behind the scenes stuff as the superstar. But I think he is and will always be Apollo Creed. Amazing talent and amazing presence. May he rest in peace. But I think that the pay of different stars is going to be material here, and also will come up if they can prove in court that Rangers of the New Republic was almost a lock. And I don't know what the actual terms would be inside of Hollywood here, but it sounds like they were working on that show and they just didn't have it in writing that everything was going to be locked down. And then of course Disney's argument is, well, we know we didn't fire her, we just didn't renew our contract. It also sounds like Favreau would be upset about that, not having been in the room with him at the time that all of that happened. I think that actor pay is going to be pivotal to this case because they're going to want to know how much she would have been paid for Rangers of the New Republic if it should have happened.
Jonas, the chances that every single Kathleen Kennedy email that Gina wants access to is labeled by Disney initially as, oh, that's a trade secret. Oh, it's a trade secret. Jonas, you're my trade secret, and that laugh tells the folks out there exactly what you think. You don't even have to articulate.
Well, it'll be a glimpse into the mind of someone who is generally pretty quiet.
I cannot wait for that billboard that we've talked about in the past. I mean, they keep backing it up, but one day when this is finally, going to trial, I can't wait for that billboard that reads beep, bop, boop. And I can't wait to read what it is that Kennedy's been up to.
Yep.
Jonas, I really appreciate you and your expertise here. Could you tell the folks out there about That Park Place, the YouTube channel, please, sir?
Sure. Over on That Park Place, we cover all the news that should be fun, but if we're going to get specific about that, it's usually the theme park side of thing and anything that affects the theme parks with the Disney company. And unfortunately, with the way the Disney company works, it all ends up affecting the theme park side of things. So if you go over there, if you happen to open up Disney Plus and see something that you wouldn't necessarily associate with the Disney company, that could affect the theme park. So we might be covering that kind of stuff too. If you haven't looked at the front page in a while, you might be surprised.
There you go, folks. Get over there and check it out, as well as the website, thatparkplace.com. Bookmark it if you can. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we ask that you go from a passive to an active listener, viewer, watcher now. Click the like button, share, subscribe, click it and stick it to the algorithms. It is the notification bell. Drop a comment down below. Let us know your thoughts. And go, Gina, go. We hate to take sides, but in this case, it's so obvious. It's so obvious. So aside we shall, because we stand with the truth with a capital T. All right, folks, until the next time, we have the honor, the joy, and the pleasure of spending time with you. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.
All right, Bob, we need to make sure we got all your legal strategies figured out.
Well, Mr. Lawyer, I'm thinking this is probably a good idea considering everything we've been up to at the company.
First, we need to make sure that you understand that anything and everything you say will likely be used against you. So, you should always wear your heart on your sleeve and say out loud what that inside voice is saying.
Are you sure? That kind of goes against what I know.
Yep. You can then play the ignorance card. Then no one will think you're super manipulative or malicious.
Brilliant.
See, now you're getting it.
So then, what if, we paid women less because they do less?
What? Nobody does that. That's just a bunch of wacky statistics that weirdos made up to make themselves sound relevant in the media. You been doing that?
No.
Exactly. But who cares if you did anyway, right? Just say that in court. It'll be fine.
Well, if that's the case, I should go out there and say we fired Gina for her political views on social media.
Of course not.
But you said...
I say a lot of things. I am a lawyer. That's what you pay me for. Besides, this is only you we're talking about. It's not like your entire company basically made clear that's exactly what happened. You're probably just gonna need to hire yourself a lawyer.
Wait, what?
Oh, and by the way, you should definitely double down on everything with the board and that whole proxy war thing. This place is losing money hand over fist, and that means that you can keep budgets lighter and management well paid.
You think I should go and double down on a proxy war with Nelson Peltz?
Oh, absolutely. Just make a trashy video promoting it. This is the company after all.
Done. That should work. Our investors have been totally ignorant and willing to throw us money regardless of what we do with it anyway. They totally have cause to sue us and for negligence and wasting money, but, they're pretty dumb.
Oh, they probably live in Florida. And Texas.